Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again, here with my third reaction to the SASR Battle for the Golden Road 1984 selection documentary. So let's jump back in.
The students are on extra rations to replace their tremendous daily energy output. If the army gives you extra rations, you can bet you need them.
Yeah, extra rations, that's cool. But as I mentioned in one of the other reactions, yeah, I was surprised at how much we were getting fed. So yeah, until the last phase.
Many have come from office jobs. They will have lost up to 5 kilos in their initial training. Now in the course, they'll lose anything up to a further 15 kilos, 20 in all, the equivalent weight of a 5-year-old child. Corporal Cole, the medical orderly.
Yep, I heard that on Search for Warriors as well. On average, I think it's pretty consistent, anywhere between 15 to 20 plus kilos. Anywhere from 15 to 25 kilos is probably pretty normal in terms of amount of weight lost on a selection course. Whether there's the New Zealand selection, which is shorter, or in this case, the Australian selection.
My job to go around in the evenings and check on the soldiers. Even though they may be physically exhausted or even injured, they're reluctant to come forward for any treatment. And it's times like this when I go through the huts in the evening, I notice that the levels of Effidex in the bottles I issued them gradually beginning to drop. And I think to myself, well, everybody here tonight is going to be having a very, very sound sleep.
Nick Minute.
Day 5, and the first time that a candidate is allowed to withdraw. To do so before is considered possibly an overreaction. But after 5 days thinking time, these men had their own reasons for going.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. After 5 days, that's when candidates can withdraw. And I think I heard him say most of them came from office jobs. Man, respect to them for fronting up, putting in an application and being there on the start line and making it however long they've been making it for so far. When he said they'll sleep soundly tonight, I thought that was reason why I said Nick Minute is because I thought there's going to be some bells and some yip-yarring and yelling happening to get them up and seeing them run out. So, but no, looks like they had a good sleep. So yeah, interesting to see if they share why they're withdrawing.
We asked what they thought of the course.
It was certainly what I expected, but physical preparation before I came just wasn't up to standard required.
We asked this man if he would apply for selection in the future.
Oh, no. That's not my line of work.
Love the honesty, man. That's awesome. I like the first guy's comment. Physical preparation wasn't up to standard. And this other guy, would you apply again? Oh, nah, not my line of work. I'm not sure if that was a signals insignia on his badge or not, on his cap badge, on his beret. I don't know. Can't remember what half the badges look like these days. I only remember the regiment and infantry.
Some had concentrated on their physical preparation and had neglected their bookwork. This man in particular was deeply depressed.
Shit, I just been working early days, just really depressing, just because I know I could have gone with the course. It's just that I had a lot of things going against me, without the knowledge I had. But that's about don't worry about it.
I couldn't really hear much of what he was saying.
It is in everybody's interest that they leave as rapidly as possible to avoid affecting the morale of the others. By 9 a.m., they're loaded into the transport and disappear.
If you have poor officers who take the easy way out, you have an ill-disciplined and slovenly unit.
1 hour later, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Roberts, commanding officer of the regiment, is briefing the 24 officers on the course.
It's well-trained and well-prepared for war. And this regiment cannot afford to have anything good officers.
As well as doing the rest of the course, the officers are required to do a little extra. The whole point of this activity is to assess the officers in a team activity requiring determined leadership and a never-say-die approach. It's important to gauge the officers in a role requiring determined, intelligent leadership, as within a year they'll be required to command strong-willed troops, often more experienced, who have proved themselves on similar selection courses and subsequently on arduous training exercises.
Okay.
After this, for the next...
It's cool, even the commentary from the person there. Now, I don't know all the details in and around what the operational tempo was like for the regiment, but listening to him speak there with the officers and all that sort of stuff, and then going into a squadron, potentially then within a year leading a troop, I should say, and maybe a squadron of highly driven, determined operators, individuals who have been through, arduous selections and various arduous training they mentioned there. So I know that there was a period of time, I don't know or remember exactly when, but a period of time where things were quiet, at least for the Australian Special Air Service Regiment. Like, there wasn't a lot happening whereby they were being utilised. And I know that there are a number of people that went through, did selection, set a massive foundation for others that have come through since then, but never deployed, never had the opportunity to deploy on operations, to put into practice in a combat zone or war zone, whatever you want to call it, as per the training that they went through. And so because of that, a number of people, when things started getting quiet, there was talk, speaking with some of the older generation, and even some of the guys that came back in. So Harry Moffat, as an example, he was in, then I think he left a few years after he had been in because there wasn't too much happening, from what I understand. I might be wrong. And then he came back when I was going through my cycle. He didn't have to do the whole selection, or he didn't have to do selection or the whole cycle again. He just had to come back and brush up on a few things, and I think just get back up to date, because he had been out for, I don't know how long he had been out for, I can't remember. But then wasn't long, so he was with us for a bit, and then he was back into a squadron while the rest of us carried on with cycle. So I know that there was a few people that, they joined because they wanted to do the job, and they wanted to serve, and they wanted to go on operations. And I think when it was quiet, I guess, when it wasn't as busy, they maybe felt like they weren't being utilised the way that they had hoped or expected. So some of the guys got out. Not everyone, but some did. But why do I share that? I like what I heard there in terms of sounds like an operator talking, and I'll just rewind it back a bit, and basically acknowledging the training aspect versus, I don't think there was a lot of operational stuff happening at this time. I don't think, anyway. I could be wrong.
As within a year, they'll be required to command strong-willed troops, often more experienced, who have proved themselves on similar selection courses and subsequently on arduous training exercises.
There you go, and arduous training exercises.
Okay.
After this, for the next 20 hours out in the bush, every officer must navigate 40 kilometres alone, and the first day is only a warm-up. In charge, Captain John Sheehan, who takes up the story.
With only 3 hours sleep, I woke the men up and told them that they had to be at a point 10 kilometres away, and they had 4 hours to do it. We could tell by their faces that they were very happy, but they didn't know that I had a big surprise plan for them. Just before 5 o'clock, they came across a simulated accident that we'd set up, using some of the staff and some Land Rovers. Each of the teams was allocated a casualty, and they now had to get that casualty down the track to the same point in the same time. This was a much more formidable task.
Dump your pack, lay your rifle down. Quickly keep a hand on his pulse. Keep a hand on his pulse. I got mine handy. Still breathing?
This man here had nursing experience and was quite at home in the task he was given. This man here was carrying an injury, and I had doubts about him being able to continue much further, and he would be a problem to try to carry his end of the stretcher. All the men were normally given tasks by the group leaders, and we were interested in assessing and seeing what priorities they put on what activities. The people acting as part of patients earned 2 or 3 Academy Awards, and probably some curses from the men because they really played their part and refused to be turned over and they had to be treated like correct casualties, although a couple were dropped off the back of the truck.
There's a lot in there just listening to the guy speak, although a couple were dropped off the back of the truck. Them playing their role should have won a couple of Academy Awards, I think I heard him say. Yeah, the role playing and stuff on selection in Australia, that brings back a lot of really good memories for me, a lot of funny memories, and puts a smile on my face. The directing staff and the support staff who are role playing or doing the role plays for their parts in the selection or for those scenarios, I mean, they do a great job. Yeah, they go all in. Likely they get a good brief from the senior instructors and that as well, and the senior directing staff, but they do a fantastic job, and it can throw you for a curveball at times when with the responses of some of the role players or the acting that's taking place by the essentially staff, but role players for those scenarios.
We had some poles on the back of the Land Rover so that there'd be no chopping in the forest. We're looking at this stage to see how the leader went about his tasks, who was helping, and one of the early groups had the biggest men, and they had groups of 5 or 6. And the first group had 6 men who were all big men, all worked very well, and they very quickly got their stretcher together. They were soon bounding down the track away from the rest of the guys who took much longer to get their act together and get their stretcher going. However, eventually, all of them got away. Groups of directing staff went with each of the groups so they could assess what was going on. They had to be in fair.
It's a shame we can't see I realise it's early in the morning, but it's a shame we can't see things as clearly. Obviously, no night vision goggles or lenses for the cameras at that time, but all we're seeing is shadows go past. But anyway,
really close so that they could see what the guys were doing, who was pulling their weight, and who was doing what at what particular time. Of course, the guy on the stretcher was able to give us some information also on what the men were saying. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before
I like how he's added that in there. Sorry to interject again, but the casualty you're carrying is not only a casualty, they're playing a part. They're downloading information and listening to what it is that you're saying, how you're saying it, who's in charge, who's playing, or not playing the game, but who's positively contributing or who's just being a bloody a pain in the backside.
Yeah, man with the bad knee was unable, or the bad ankle was unable to continue, and much to his displeasure, we had to take him off the exercise because he was unable to carry his weight and was slowing the team down. This caused another reshuffle to make sure that there was at least a roughly equal distribution between the various stretchers.
By 7 a.m, fatigue begins to set in as the stretcher parties weave their way down the track. Men take it in turns in the rest position to the rear of the stretcher. Everyone's mind set on the official finish time. Meanwhile, John Sheehan had to remain constantly vigilant.
I can see a problem here as the men begin to think less about the team and more about minimising their own pain. They're dripping with perspiration, their hands are slippery, the poles are slippery, and if the man on the right just swung round here, he'd drive the barrel of his rifle into his mate. The guy on the left, with his rifle stuck between his legs, if he tripped at that stage, would fall down and bring the whole team down. As you can see, as the team moves off, that some of the men have got their hands on the pole and others allow the pole to rest on their shoulders or between their shoulders and their pack. You see, the less they think, the more careless they're likely to become. Ironically enough, when the first big problem arose, it wasn't caused by carelessness, but by equipment failure. One of the stretcher poles broke. The end was forced straight into the back of the leading man. As the injured man staggers away from the stretcher, you'll notice that the DS appear to be doing nothing. In fact, they're doing their job. They're assessing what the patrol commander and the patrol members are going to do about this situation, and they're assessing on what they would do if they were on operational patrol when there was no DS available. All these men are trained soldiers and know what to do, but the directing staff are assessing what the patrol commander puts his priorities on. The directing staff have told me by radio that the accident has occurred, and I had directed the doctor to get to the location as fast as possible.
The guy there pretty much just summed up everything, and the directing staff are there observing what's happening. So yeah, good commentary from this selection way back then, and this gives, like, this stuff is still the same as far as I'm aware, and the stuff that he's talking about is the mindset that I had when I was on selection in Australia. So they tried and tested the things here, and it's just interesting to me how much information was made available even back then when this documentary was done. I don't know when it was released. I'm assuming it was released in 1984, or maybe it was done in 1984 and then released in 85 or something. I don't know. But either way, this is very cool.
The doctor is called up on the radio and is there within minutes. His first task to identify what has happened. He makes straight for the DS, Major Bill Forbes, who briefs him. In the meantime, the patrol leader had got the injured man down at the side of the road in the most comfortable position and was preparing to move the patrol off.
It was obvious, looking at the student, that he was in great distress because he realised that this was the end of the road. He couldn't continue on the course. In cases like this, you have to reassure people that everything is okay, and that's exactly what I did.
As I arrived at the scene of the accident, I realised that this group was now down to 4 men. They were the last group on the road, and they were going to have problems maintaining the pace. With these sorts of accidents occurring at this early stage of the day, it looked like being a bad day for everybody.
With the arrival of John Sheehan, it was decided that after the pethidine had had time to relieve the severe pain, the soldier could be moved by road to Northam Hospital. Now, for the first time, our film unit becomes directly involved. By slipping a ground sheet under the prone man and lifting him full length, we're able to slide him into the back of our camera car.
I was able to tell the soldier that the accident was not his fault and that it had been equipment failure, and that within half an hour he would be at the local hospital.
That'd suck. I wonder if that person went back to selection again. Just brings back memories of and I never saw it happen. I just saw the aftermath after. On my selection in Australia, where we had those torsion bars, which I think I was talking about in the first reaction, when the guys were pressing their weapons up and down overhead, and we had these bars that are roughly around about 20 kilos each. And I think one of the guys dropped his bar behind him when we were lined up, and it landed on the foot of the person behind him. And I'm pretty sure it broke the guy's foot. And so that guy was done. That was probably fairly early in the selection, maybe, I don't know if it was a week or less than a week, or maybe a little over a week. I don't think it was halfway anyway. It was fairly early on. But anyway, the only reason that person had to come off was because his foot I think it was broken, or badly injured anyway, from the guy that dropped the bar on his foot. So he left. But the good news is that guy came back after he had healed up and passed selection the next time around, and thankfully avoided having anybody injure him. So the equipment failure on here, maybe the lashing on the poles for the stretcher wasn't done tight enough, or maybe there was just a weak point in the pole that they had, which just snapped, and it sounds like it slammed into his back. I couldn't see any marks or anything, because, believe it or not, some people do try to fake an injury with regards to selection, so that they talk about it on the Search for Warriors. I think people think there's a bit more honor in that. I got injured and couldn't carry on. So some people do try to do that, and hence the medics and the staff they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not forgiving. They're not, I suppose they don't appear to be too, like, the bedside manner isn't like what you'd get from a nurse or a medic in a hospital or that sort of thing, or in a medical facility. Let's put it that way anyway.
As the other teams continue down the track, I'm faced with the decision as to whether to allow obviously distressed men to continue or to take them off the course.
As the last stretcher party goes past John Sheehan, he has the opportunity to assess the condition of these men. He's not happy with what he sees and alerts the doctor.
We'd already pulled out 2 guys the night before, and John and I were now worried about the guy in the slouch hat who had just passed.
Not likely to hurt himself falling over. By now, the finish time had come and gone, and the men were doubly stressed as they realised we were not going to stop the exercise.
John Sheehan reports back to his senior officer.
The doc was worried about Young's back though, and he couldn't find too much just there at that stage because of the obvious pain the guy was in. Shifted him in the similar position.
Notice, even while being concerned, Sheehan still pushes the men on.
Come around our left side. Keep going if you're going. Don't block the bloody highway, you guys. There's people coming through. Not vehicles, your own mate. Part of the tribe. Come on, you can't collapse in the middle and bring the whole show down. No. Yeah, according to that, it was still going okay. It was just a pole broken.
I'm wondering what day or what part of selection they're up to. So they said 24 days in part 1 of my reaction. I'm just wondering what day they're up to right now.
Middle. He took all the weight in the middle of the back, which the doctor fears has caused him some damage.
Because for reason why I asked that, or why I'm wondering what day they're up to, is because on my selection in Australia, we were doing those types of tasks during, not that exact scenario, but tasks similar to that during Lucky Dip, which is the last phase of selection. There were some bits and pieces similar to that, some sandbag stuff, navigating 2 points, and then doing some PT stuff with the PTIs. I remember they had these thick pads tied to these trees, and we had to, once we navigated, got there and had to take our kit off, and then we had to punch them as hard and as fast as we could for as long as they told us to go, and then they'd tell us to stop, and then we had to keep repeating and doing that over and over again. Then put our gear on, then go to other checkpoints, and then fill up sandbags, get them up onto a unimog, and make a sandbag singer to defend and fight out of. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of just arduous tasks to break you down, have you out there on your own doing these tasks on your own, not in a team, and have you thinking. And then stuff like that, like what I was talking about, was typically done, or I recall we were doing activities like that for long periods of time, cut-off times, people in charge, and just carrying, lifting, shifting, pushing, dragging things for long periods of time, and through the bush in that last phase. So yeah, I'm really interested to know what phase they're up to.
Right. Sir? Yeah, what happened? It's now hotting up in every sense of the word. It's getting near noon, and with the added stress, more men are beginning to show signs of heat illness. When this occurs, I normally like to get down and talk to the man to get an assessment on his ability to continue, or generally how he's feeling.
Race. Yep. Yeah. How do you feel in your stomach?
I'm mindful of the fact that these men have spent a long time trying to get on this course, and I'm reluctant to take a man off the course until he's given every opportunity to do his best. I've had experience where one man was not allowed to attempt selection for 2 years. And on the 3rd year, when he was able to convince people he should attempt the course, he did the course with ease. And so I always attempt to let people go as far as they possibly can, but commensurate with us providing them with a good medical backup and looking after their well-being and safety.
Seems very like I never witnessed, not on my selection and not in the Search for Warriors, I never witnessed any sort of interactions like what the senior instructor is doing. Sorry, I can't remember his rank. But it's cool to see, like different time, different generation. It seems to me as I watch this and I watch the way he is with the soldiers, he seems very like genuine care and concern and interest in the candidate that has put up their hand. And I like how he's acknowledged, many of the candidates have spent a considerable amount of time preparing for selection, and even acknowledging the person that he said that passed on his third time or his third application or whatever it was. Yeah, pretty cool to hear. But yeah, very different. This seems like different in terms of the niceness, I guess, of what I'm seeing in this documentary on the selection there. But not surprising in terms of the communication, the volume and the tone. Like when he was on the rover then and telling the guys to get out of the middle of the road, that's probably the loudest he'd probably raised his voice at the candidates on the selection. So it's just a very different beast in comparison to what people, I think, imagine in their head what a selection is like.
Okay. Half an hour later, we had our most severe case of heat illness.
Yeah, I was going to say this fella looks knackered.
The man in the slouch hat that had caused us so much concern before had come to the end of his particular road.
All right, I must have damaged. We're going to have to lift you up to get your cold shirt off, okay? That's a good idea.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay, there you go. Right there. Okay. I'll put this on. Okay, can you make him up a drink with some electrolyte? What have it? I'll get some warm there. Okay.
In cases like this, it's better to be safe than sorry. And I called up the helicopter. With the medevac underway, I was able to direct my attention back towards the exercise. Within half an hour, the DS had completed all their assessments, and I directed that the exercise stop. Incidentally, the man you saw flown out by helicopter was back in the base camp 2 days later, demanding his shirt back.
Was that back in the base camp 2 days later, demanding his shirt back? What does he mean? His shirt to be a candidate? I'm not sure what that means, unless he's just talking about his uniform.
As well as assessing determination and endurance, we're also looking for natural aggression. But for combat, we're looking for controlled and directed aggression. Some men placed in a position like this will lose all self-control. Unless he shows the potential to be skilled out of it, he's not the man we're looking for.
Push him right back. See him the other side there.
I like that comment too. Controlled aggression. Can be easier said than done, but in that environment and on cycle, like we weren't doing activities like that. This is their selection. We weren't doing activities like that on selection, not during my time on the Australian selection, nor in the NZ selection, but during the cycle, the CQB and close quarter battle and that sort of stuff, hand-to-hand combat stuff. There was times where you needed to exercise that and show what's the term Aussies would use? Get a bit of mongrel about you when you're going through those activities, and you see it come through. You'll see some people that can become quite timid and not shy, but timid, like not aggressive enough. And you can see some people at the other end of the spectrum that are just out the gate. And then you'll have those that can turn it on when they need to, but can also turn it off and leave it off as and when they don't need to, but still be, that they're still mindful and able to just crank it back up or switch it on if they need to. So yeah, people like that I really admired and had a lot of respect for.
Next, the first navigation exercise. To get there, the men undertake a 20-kilometre march with full equipment. This includes rifle, radio, spare battery, 4 days rations, 6 water bottles, bedding and other personal equipment. All up, at least 50 kilograms. We continue the preparatory phase of the course by marching the men in a tight group accompanied by the DS. Only the weakest will drop out at this stage, owing to the now strong group identity. From here, they'll move alone on the navigation exercise, lasting 24 hours without rest. Many struggle on, enduring intense pain and physical discomfort. This highlights their strong sense of discipline and determination to pass the course.
The men also have to resist the soft option of getting into the ever-present ambulance and giving up. It's about this time that they're probably thinking back to Corporal Cole's medical lecture.
I'll pause this one here. It's just on 30 minutes now. But interesting, 20 kilometers stomp or 20 kilometer stomp to get to, I think, the start point of their navigation phase. I'm not sure if that 20 kilometer stomp is timed. I believe it was 3 hours and 15 minutes you have to complete it. 3 hours 15 or 3 hours 30. I think it's 3:15 to complete that 20 kilometer stomp. And yeah, your kit is probably close to around about the same. I think the pack weight itself was 35 kilos, and then you've got your webbing, which is about another 10 to 12 kilos. And then you've got your rifle, which is, a couple of kilos. So whatever that works out to be, 35, 45, 47, 48, 49, close to 50 kilos by the time you add all of that up in terms of kits and equipment that you're carrying. And yeah, it's a long way to stomp. Interesting that they said 24-hour navigation exercise. Interesting. I wonder how that worked, because there was and it's still, so they've said it's still the preparatory phase, so it's definitely they're not into lucky dip, and you wouldn't be doing that type of individual navigation exercise. I'm not sure if they're doing the navigation portion individually. Hopefully we'll see that. We didn't do that with any directing staff. You're out on your own, and it's up to you to push yourself to make it to those checkpoints, to cover and get through as many checkpoints as you can, while having all your kits and your dress and bearing and stuff around you, not only while you're patrolling to those areas or navigating to those areas, but also when you show up at the checkpoints and you're communicating with the directing staff. So yeah, man, there's a lot in here. This is cool. I hope it gives, for me anyway, it helps me to break it up between the Four Corners documentary that I'm reacting to in regards to the war crime allegations that the Four Corners crew put together in and around Australian SASR. I realise this is an old documentary, but man, as I look at this, there are a lot of things that I can see and hear that were still present when I went through selection there. There's also some things that are a little bit surprising in terms of the niceness and the kindness of senior instructors, but also it's I don't know if it'd balances out the reactions, but there's definitely some heaviness that I'm seeing in the Four Corners stuff, especially with some of the conversations between some of the operators in and around what they aren't happy with or what they've seen. So yeah, it's sad. I feel sad for those guys that have experienced what they've experienced, and I honestly, I just hope that it gets sorted out, that whatever needs to happen happens through whatever that process is, and that there's an outcome rather than an ongoing dragging out the situation. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for your time and that once again, and for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. And with that being said, the message is the same. Regardless of any challenges, trials, obstacles that you may be facing or going through, you or somebody that you know, I just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other, and take one day at a time. I promise you things can do and will get better. The sun will shine again. There are better days ahead, and there is a light at the end of that long, dark, and seemingly lonely and miserable tunnel. I promise you. So as always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.